Perception, consciousness, and wisdom. Perception, sanya, consciousness, vijnana, and wisdom, panya, are all aspects of knowledge, yet they are part of three distinct aggregates. The first two factors, described earlier in this chapter, constitute an aggregate in themselves, whereas wisdom is classified among the mental formations, sankhara. Wisdom, panya, refers generally to understanding, and more specifically to comprehensive or clear understanding. To a thorough and accurate understanding of the truth. This term panya is defined in many different ways, including knowledge of causality, knowledge of good and evil, knowledge of right and wrong, knowledge of suitability, knowledge of benefit and harm, knowledge of advantages and disadvantages, thorough knowledge of conditioned phenomena, knowledge of constituent factors, knowledge of causes and conditions, knowledge of origin and destination, knowledge of the interrelationship of things, knowledge of reality, and knowing how to reflect on, contemplate, analyze, and engage with or manage things and situations. Simply speaking, wisdom is clear, correct, and genuine understanding. Wisdom possesses an insight into reality, and it penetrates into the heart of problems. It supports both perception, sanya, and consciousness, vijnana. In regard to the latter, it broadens and deepens the range of consciousness. Likewise, in regard to the former, it increases the range of perception, because the cognition and apprehension of things is dependent on one's knowledge. This is similar to solving mathematical problems. As long as one cannot solve the initial equations, one has no data or criteria for further calculations. With increased understanding, one possesses the markers or raw material for further perception and analysis. Wisdom, panya, stands in opposition to delusion, moha, ignorance, misunderstanding, whereas perception, sanya, and consciousness, vijnana, are not contrasted with delusion in this way. Indeed, perception and consciousness may fall prey to delusion. When one is deluded and confused, one's conscious experience and perceptions are equally distorted. Wisdom assists here to rectify both consciousness and perception. Perception, sanya, and consciousness, vijnana, rely on currently manifesting sense objects in order to function. Images or concepts of these sense objects are thus created and discerned. Wisdom, on the other hand, reflects on sense objects and responds actively to them. Wisdom is a deliberative faculty and is thus classified among the volitional formations, sankhara. It links various sense impressions with each other, analyzes their various attributes, compares and considers various perceptions, and discerns cause and effect, interrelationship, and the ways to benefit from things. By doing this, it provides consciousness and perception with wholesome food for engagement. Venerable Sariputta once responded to the question on how wisdom, panya, and consciousness, vijnana, differ. He explained that wisdom knows, understands, knows clearly that this is suffering, this is the cause of suffering, this is the cessation of suffering, and this is the way leading to the end of suffering. Consciousness, on the other hand, knows discriminative understanding that this is pleasure, this is pain, and this is neither pleasure nor pain. Wisdom and consciousness, however, are intimately entwined and, in a sense, inseparable. Having said this, there is a distinction in that wisdom is a quality to be trained and developed. Bhave taba dhamma. In order to increase and strengthen it, in contrast, consciousness is a quality to be fully understood. Parinyaya dhamma. Its nature and its attributes should be truly recognized and understood. The commentarial texts, including the Visuddhimagga, explain the distinction between perception, sanya, consciousness, vijnana, and wisdom, panya, in this way. Perception, sanya, simply recognizes the properties of a sense object. Say that it is green or yellow, it is unable to understand the characteristics of impermanence, dukkha, and non-self. Consciousness, vijnana, also knows the object's properties of green, yellow, etc., and it is able to understand the characteristics of impermanence, dukkha, and non-self. It understands according to the counsel and guidance by wisdom. It cannot deliver one to the actualization of the path, i.e., to the realization of the Four Noble Truths. Wisdom, however, accomplishes all three. It knows the properties of sense objects, it discerns the three characteristics, and it enables the actualization of the path. The commentaries use the analogy of three people who look at the same coin. Perception, sanya, is like a young child who simply discerns the shape of the coin. Small, large, square, or round, its colour, attractive sheen, and strange markings. He does not know that it is an agreed upon means of trade and exchange. Consciousness, vijnana, is like an adult who discerns the shape, markings, etc. of the coin, and who knows that it is used for trade and exchange. But he does not possess the deeper understanding of whether the coin is genuine or counterfeit, or if what combination of metals were used to mint the coin. Wisdom is like a treasurer who discerns all the above data, and in addition possesses expert knowledge, to the extent that he may look at, tap and listen to, smell, taste, or weigh the coin in his hands, and know everything about it, including where and by whom it was made. Moreover, wisdom does not always arise. It may happen that only perception and consciousness arise, devoid of wisdom. Yet when wisdom arises alongside these other two qualities, it is difficult to distinguish one from the other. When Jali and Kanha sought a hiding place, they walked backwards into the lotus pond, convinced that their pursuer would think that they had only recently come out of the pond. This line of thinking on their part may be referred to as wisdom, panya. Later, Vesantara saw their footprints and knew immediately that they had walked backwards into the pond. This was because there were only prints leading away from the pond and none leading towards it, and the impression in the prints was deepest at the heels. This understanding may also be referred to as wisdom. The children and their father applied different levels of wisdom and circumspection, which indicates how wisdom, panya, derives benefit from perception, panya, sanya. Prince Siddhartha saw an old person, a sick person, and a human corpse, and as a result he reflected on and discerned the suffering to which everyone is prone, without exception. He then went on to understand how all conditioned things are impermanent, subject to arising, to alteration, and eventually to passing away. And he saw the need to bring to an end the suffering based on these conditions. These are all examples of wisdom, panya. When the Buddha was preparing to establish Buddhism in the Magadha country, he went to visit the matted hair ascetics of the Kassapa clan, who were revered by the people of Magadha in order that they gain confidence in and endorse the Buddha's teachings. The insight and intuition behind this line of thinking by the Buddha is also an expression of wisdom. The term panya is a general term describing the kinds of knowledge mentioned above. There are many different levels of wisdom, for example mundane wisdom, lokiya panya, and transcendent wisdom, lokuttara panya. There are many other Pali terms indicating specific levels, degrees, and or aspects of wisdom, or referring to its specific activities, qualities, or benefits. For example, jnana, knowledge, vijja, true knowledge, vipassana, insight, sampajana, clear comprehension, parinya, thorough knowledge, abhinya, supreme knowledge, and patisambhida, discriminative knowledge.